So, as you may already know, I'm Moroccan. So, we also have a lot of differences between Morocco and Belgian culture, business culture, and social cultures. So, to start off, in the situation of power distance, so if you look at the Hofstede numbers in the category of power distance, Morocco is a very hierarchical country. So that means that everything has a place and that there's no need for questions. What does this mean? Well, Morocco is a very, very cultural and um, traditionally strong country. So they are used to just having one, like some people in power. They also have a king and a family bloodline, a hierarchy in that way. So all the power is also with the government and not really with the people. But um, they still have voting and are a democratic country. They don't really like people that ask too many questions, especially not personal, as everything is just the way it is. So you shouldn't be meddling too much with business. In contrary, Belgium is not doesn't have a big power distance. Inequalities are accepted. For example, gay people and um, do get accepted here. So LGBTQ people do get accepted here, socially accepted, and by law. But in Morocco, for example, this is not the case. Also, everything may be centralized in Brussels, but there is still uh, their own powers in the Flemish side and in the Wallonian side. So, the next point is masculinity, which talks about uh, the people's mentality and uh, the way things are done that over there. So, in Morocco, because there is such a central score, it is not very conclusive. But to my experience, it is very masculine. In contrary to Belgium, which is a feminine country. To put this into perspective, um, Moroccan people are very proud, are very used to their traditions and the way they don't like changing things up too much. They have a daily routine of life, which Belgium also has. But Belgium is a more of a feminine side country. They care more about loyalty, about emotions, about the well-being of people, which are not that relevant in Moroccan social culture. And then third and lastly, uh, in the category of long-term orientation, Morocco is a very normative country. They are into establishing one truth. As I said before, which is there's a reason why I keep repeating some things. For example, that Moroccan people um, keep tight to their traditions a lot, is because oh yeah, I repeat that a lot, and that's because we have a very we're a very national, probably you can call it nationalistic country. So we have a tendency to stay the way we are and take pride in our country and our traditions and our culture and our habits. While Belgium, for example, is very open to change and very open to adapt new conditions easily, which shows it is a very pragmatic culture, which is focused a lot more on renewal and evolution.
I'll be talking about the cultural differences between Belgium and Japan using the Hofstede's index. So first with power distance, first of all, I will talk about the power distance. Surprisingly, Belgium has a lot of trouble with the way their hierarchy is handled. The bosses in Belgium are mostly untouchable and control the distribution of information of smaller powers. On the other hand, Japan is seen as a very hierarchical society, but the truth is that there is no one big boss in corporations, only associations. A very annoying process in Japan is that anything official takes very long due to the lack of confidence the Japanese people have in making decisions on their own and always need an affirmation of their bosses. Now, moving on to individualism. The Belgian people are very individualistic and take very good care of themselves. They value the extra time that is given for self care and family. They take more time for themselves and family than the other groups of people. This does cause tension with power distance structure within Belgium. In Japan, there's not much individualism amongst the people. There is a mentality in Japan that everyone must work together to be the most efficient and productive. Outside of the teamwork that happens in the workplace, Japanese people tend to be very reserved and keep to themselves. Now, on to masculinity. There's a lot of debate and compromise when it comes to the way Belgians communicate in businesses. They tend to keep discussing a certain matter until there is a compromise that is reached. In Japan, on the other hand, is actually ranked as one of the most masculine countries in regards to the Hofstede Index. The thing that makes them unique is that Japanese people don't tend to compete individually. Instead, they compete more in groups, tending to always stick to the winning side. Now, uncertainty avoidance. Belgians tend to avoid being in a position where they are not in control. They solve it with higher education, rules, security, and management structures. This leads to it being difficult to change any existing rules like the constitution that divides Brussels, Wallonia, and Flanders. Japan has always been susceptible to natural disasters for millenniums. This led the Japanese to develop a mentality of firm preparation. This preparation is a staple to how Japanese handle everything, especially in the world of business. Now, to long-term orientation. The Belgian people stick very much to what they find logical. They find truth in the situation, context, and time. These are determining factors in how their long-term decisions are made. In Japan, the little small-term goals are never really the driving points for motivation. Instead, it is the whole impact within the community that drives the workers in a business. They truly focus on the long-term big picture for a company or organization. And moving on to indulgence. Belgians tend to not go overboard with their indulgence. They find a good balance between the time and effort it takes to go to work and value their own vacation and individual time. Japan has a lot of cultural restraint. Japanese people live to work rather than work to live. There's a bad image for people who take too much time, or even any time at all when it comes to leisure. This is because of the social pressure constantly presented to be perceived as a hard worker.
So when talking about power distance in the corporate culture between Ghana and Belgium, you can actually find some similarities between the two. Both of them score pretty high on the hostility inside, which actually means that they find it normal that there's a hierarchy in powers. They find it normal that there's one boss and that the subordinates actually all obey the boss. In Belgium, it kind of differs from Ghana when you look at it in depth, because for the Belgians, it's more like the boss is someone who's just a human being who I can talk to, but in a formal way, in a way of respect, usually by contacting them by their last name. The first name is actually comes a bit later when you're a bit more familiar with the boss. But in Ghana, it's actually really different. In Ghana, it's like the boss is the boss, and I can't really like speak on a formal way with the boss. Everything is like really strict, and the boss always tells me what to do. I can't. If the boss tells me to do this, I'll just do it. The difference between Belgium and Ghana for the individualism lies a bit farther from each other. Belgium scores very high on individualism, which means that they have like this the strong sense that they have to do everything on their own. They would rather really work towards a certain goal, but on their own, not really like in a we form, but like in an I form. For the Ghanaians, it's really differs. They have a huge feeling of collectivity, which means that they really want to work towards a certain goal as a group. Because for the Ghanaians, I think the best slogan is "There's no I in team," so they really want to work towards a certain goal together. For the uncertainty avoidance, Belgium has the highest index, which means that Belgium really wants to keep everything as it already is. They really like to avoid uncertainty. They don't like to take risks. They want to keep everything as it already is because they're already familiar with that. For example, changing laws is not something that they really want to do because it takes time to implement those rules and those laws into the corporate culture, and this can cause for uncertainty. And this is something Belgians really would like to avoid. Ghana is like the same, but not like that extreme as the Belgians are. Ghana just wants to keep everything as it is, just keep you flowing the way it is, but it's not that extreme as the Belgians see it or feel it. Belgians, Ghana and Belgium are quite the same. They like to spend their time, the time off. They like to, exhibit the desires. They like to spend time on themselves, enjoy life. For For the Ghanaians, it's a bit different. The Ghanaians really like to enjoy their life, but by spending their hard-earned money on the things that they like. It can be on activities, it can be on clothing, it can be on food. It's just what you feel like you want to spend your money on, you can just spend your money on. A couple of the, I think, most important stereotypes are probably that Ghanaians are always late. If I'm really honest, I can actually confirm that. Ghanaians are sometimes really pretty chill about their time and think that everyone has the same time as they have. But when it's a serious matter, I think Ghanaians can be really on time. Because, for example, if it's like a really important business meeting, I think Ghanaians will take it serious enough to actually come on time. So I think for that, you don't have to worry. The second stereotype is also that Ghanaians really like to build a relationship before actually making a deal, which I can also confirm. I think if you make a deal with someone, you actually have built like some type of relationship with that person, so that you can move on from that relationship situation into business, which will make it more familiar for both parties involved, and can actually result in better negotiations.
Hello, my name is Rebeka Haasz, and I was born and raised in Hungary. Coming here to live in Belgium, I had no clear idea of what life could be like in a different culture. Luckily, I met with a lot of internationals from all over the world that helped me adapt to my new different life. However, I remember that I had some culture shocks as well, which happened to be because countries are diverse and we need to accustom to each. Firstly, thinking about power distance, Belgium has a more formal style when it comes to colleagues and managers. In Hungary, we think that our superiors are also just people with the same rights, and we often address our speech in an equal manner to everyone. Although we often use a polite and slightly formal attitude, which means we like giving respect equally to everyone. According to the next aspect, both countries are pretty individualistic, and I couldn't agree more. The Western European impact on my country shows that we put our interests and relations first, not the whole societies. That means that oftentimes our managers only keep an eye for their benefits, and so creating our work-life balance is dependent on us. I was always aware of the fact that Hungary is a truly masculine society. We love competition, we thrive to be the best. I remember that at my first workplace, I worked as a finance manager, and due to my young age, I constantly had to prove my capability to my boss and employees to be able to fit in. That is completely different in Belgium. Here, even though I know people take their job seriously, they are calmer and not pressuring themselves too much. We prefer avoiding uncertainty in Hungary, which means we have strict rules of proper behavior. Most offices in Hungary expect precision, a high level of concentration, and energy investment from their employees. This situation is even tighter in Belgium since their country's history was uncertain. That sounds interesting to me because in my birth country, these rules sometimes make us stressful and pressured. Hungary has a pragmatic orientation, but Belgium is a better example of that. Hungarians look back and reflect on our past too much, what takes energy away from building a better future. On the contrary, during negotiations, we both think about the present and the future, so a proper collection of data and arguments lead us to a possible deal. Growing up in Hungary, I met with so much pessimism and melancholia. Even though more people deal with depression and burnout than in Belgium at the workplace, they usually don't go to therapy. My personal view is that sometimes people want change, but they need a lot of motivation to be open for that. In Belgium, they are rather optimistic and more caring for mental health and personal boundaries, which is a positive habit. Finally, I would like to mention some fun facts that come in handy in professional life with Hungary. We like proper clothing, not too extravagant or different from the norms. Hungarians also like exploring, so if someone can put their speech in the right context, we are open and excited about new things. We are also good at hospitality. We like giving joy by offering services to tourists. I hope I could help you with getting to know Hungary a little better.